Okay, that's brighter. I think I got everything in order. It's October, the October live stream. How is everybody doing this fine autumnal day? I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. A fair bit has happened, kinda, since we spoke last in our September live. Some odd occurrences, some cool occurrences, and pretty awesome occurrence. Not last night, the night before. Canadian Carp Society's popping in there. Johnny Haystacks. 334 Outdoors, good to see you. Johnny Haystacks is what seems to be a new nickname that came up last weekend while at the Canadian Carp Society social. Those of you on the inside of that joke will get a good chuckle. Those of you who are not yet on the inside of that joke, that may be a story for another day. Good to see you guys popping in there. See a few others have shown up. 334 Outdoors, too busy to fish today. I hear ya. That sucks. I was supposed to go fishing this morning. I was going to try and do a 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. We're in the last few days of the Canadian Carp Society's fall SSF, and I need some upgrades. But when my alarm went off just before 4 a.m., I didn't hear it. When it went off a second time, I did hear it. Apparently picked up my phone, took it off the charger, turned the alarm off, but somehow did not get out of bed and get dressed and get ready to go. I then woke up at 8 o'clock wondering why I was still in bed and not on the river. So I guess I was just worn out. I did have 2 after-work sessions this week that really made me tired. Getting to the spot at 6 p.m., fishing right through until 10:30, and having fish. I was on to fish. I think I had... It was Wednesday and Thursday night, and I had 8 fish out of 9 runs over the 2 days, including any of you guys have been on the Instagram and seen the latest reel that I put up this morning. I had a gorgeous Upper Niagara River mirror, absolutely gorgeous, big apple slice scales, and I've been fishing the Upper Niagara since 1987. This was the 3rd mirror I've had out of that river in that time, 35 years. The first one was in 1997 or 1998. I have an old picture somewhere, which is still to this day my PB of 18 pounds for a mirror. The second one came in 2020. I believe it was March of 2020. And the 3rd Upper River mirror came just this week. It was just shy of 13 pounds, or it was dark. I put it on the scale quickly and put it back down because I wanted to get back in the water. So it was like just above or just below 13 pounds. So we'll just say it was 13 pounds even. 334 Outdoors saying, but I'm still awake and figured I'd better get some sleep since I'm getting married today. Okay, yes, so you definitely should get some sleep for that because that's going to take a lot out of you. Second, congratulations on getting married. Quite a momentous occasion. And third, thanks for tuning in on your wedding day. I'm glad you got your priorities straight. All the best to you and your soon-to-be married half. Dan Pattison, the luckiest carp angler in Ontario. Good to see you there. So yeah, a few good fish this week. Help me I got a couple of upgrades, not much, only a little bit for my SSF entries. What was great was that it's a swim that I fished a fair bit and had some really big fish out of. I did see a fully scaled mirror swim by 3 weeks ago, and then to have gotten that mirror this week was great. But pretty much all the fish I've been catching are almost cookie cutter. You can almost guarantee as soon as you're hooking them, they're about 14 pounds. It's a really good, healthy group of fish that I've gotten into there, and I haven't seen the big ones like I have in the past. But fishing it as much as I have the last few weeks, this spot has really allowed me to learn kind of where the gravel strips are. It's a very fast flowing spot. So those of you who've seen the videos I've done on the upper river, I'm either fishing a really slack spot or I'm fishing a pretty swift spot. This spot is shallower and faster than any of the other swims that I fish on the upper river currently. And there's two defined gravel strips with weeds in between, right at this slight drop off. So I can wade out to about knee deep, then it drops off to about 6.5 feet. Gin clear, very fast, a lot of drifting weed, but I can see these gravel strips, and the fish line up as if they're going up lanes of a highway. So I try to always have one in the farther strip of gravel and two in the close. I've even had them come up right in the margins, right at the top of the drop in a foot of water, because I've been fishing it in the evening, so after dark, and I've been able to catch them in a foot of water right under the rod tips, all the way out to a couple rod lengths out in that really swift stuff. One of the fish I had on Wednesday night was an 18-pounder, and I got that on a 24 mil boilie. This spot, when you hook a fish, they're going to go upstream or they're going to go downstream. Well, downstream, it's all rocks and gravel, rocks and boulders, and they get around those. Upstream, there's a big tree laying in the water, so they're going under that. So what I found is 3 rods are just too much, but I don't want to chop one of my legs off to try and to get a good fish, a good upgrade. So I'm still fishing 3, but I'm putting a large bait on one of the rods, and then I'm fishing 2 of my kind of go-tos like pop-ups or wafters. So Wednesday was really, really big. They were after superfruit and pineapple, or pineapple chunks. But Thursday they wouldn't touch those. So Thursday I put out banana and cold water green beast, and I had an even better session. I doubled the runs on Thursday that I had on Wednesday. They really liked the green beast. So by fishing one bait as a big bait, that donkey choker bait, I could fish 2 effectively as long as I steered them around the other line. And then if the big one goes, well, it's a bonus. And Wednesday, that's what happened. I had a fish on the right, I had a fish on the left, then I had a fish on the middle rod, which was the big bait. Did the same tactic on Thursday. The big bait did not go. Did not get anything on the big bait. But the 2 smaller baits, when I switched them up to banana and green beast, they were going off more often. I had more fish. So it was pretty awesome. Thursday ended up being 2 double runs. The first one, I hooked them, the very first bite, 10 minutes in, I hooked the fish, got it up, see it, it's a mirror. I'm going nuts, trying to get it in the net. And while I'm down the bank about 20 yards, 15 yards, trying to get this fish in the net in the current, one of my other rods went, and I just didn't get to it in time. By the time I got to it, like the fish had peeled tons of line out. By the time I got to it, the hook had come out. But later on that evening, I had a 19, and I was happy about that. I was just about to start weighing it, had the 19, weighed it, put it back, had a run, got that fish in the net, mid double. I think that one was 14. And then as soon as I got that in the net, the other rod went, and that ended up being a 14, and I had 2 14s in the net. So yeah, it was a great couple sessions this past week with some really great captures. Let's see here. Dan Passon, did you find the weather changes difficult? Found we had to adapt daily. It's weird. Okay. In my area here, the weather changes are really hard to adapt to in the spring. But once we get into summer and right through until, midwinter, adapting to the weather is pretty easy. The fish are pretty easy going. Spring is the difficult time. Now, if you look back at last weekend, when a number of us were at the Canadian Carp Society first social, hopefully annual social, there was 23 of us there. We had a nice big campsite at the St. Lawrence River. And weather, I think, definitely did play a factor there for a lot of us. We got there, it was beautiful out, cool nights, but it was absolutely just stunning. Relatively calm water when we got there on the Friday and all started fishing. And it pretty much stayed that way through Friday night and Saturday morning. I had my first fish Saturday morning when we were up there. But as Saturday progressed, the winds picked up and they changed direction. So they were coming, I believe, from the west or southwest, and then they shifted to be a northeast. And it got up to like 40, 45 kilometers. I think there was like gusts of over 50. In particular, one gust was a bit of an issue for me. But we were set up through the night, and we were getting fish. Kevin to my right and myself, we actually had a couple of bites in that, really hard, cold wind Saturday night. And yeah, a lot of people were surprised. I was fishing chotties at distance, and I had one rig that I had weighted out and placed a little bit closer. The close rod went at 10:30 Saturday night in the cold wind, and then I had one on the chotty. I guess I had the chotty. The next fish on the chotty was the next morning, once the sun had come up. But that wind, we did have to adapt. Weeds were pushing in on us. It was strong. The wind was really having a lot of impact on the lines because of the waves coming through. So when I decided to put that rod in close, that was like an early afternoon decision. A bunch of us on that shore decided to bring some rods close because we knew it would be difficult to try and cast back out in that wind as it got bigger. But also just the likelihood that we would have less line activity while we were trying to sleep. We wanted to have a night line set up close. So we did have to adapt to the weather there, bringing some lines in close and being a little bit more careful. It turns out that as the gusts and the wind shifted, one really big gust decided that it wanted to wreak havoc on my camp, despite having a couple pegs, a bunch of gear inside on the tension strap, and like rocks this big, like small boulders, all around the outside of my Tempest. 1:30 in the morning, while I was out cold, I just hear this loud noise. And I pulled the blanket off my head and I looked up and I could see stars. My Tempest was gone. And I started to panic because I had 3 of my rods in the retaining straps on the side of the bivvy. And when I reached for my headlamp, my bag wasn't there. So Dave had woken up and come over, and we did get some lights out, and we were looking around. There's my bag. There's my cooler of beer. There's my 2 of my rods laying on the ground. There's another rod with the ceramic broken out of one of the tips. My camera on the tripod was 50 feet away, leaning against the back of Kevin's bivvy. And my gear was just strewn out everywhere. And, it's pitch black. We're on an island in the St. Lawrence. You're not going to see anything. And eventually, once I got past Kevin's shelter, I looked up into the big willow tree that was there because I thought my shelter was gone. I thought it was downriver, gone, never going to see it again. But I looked up and there was my Tempest just smashed and being beaten in with the wind against this willow tree with branches coming out through it. So it was referred to as the Sunday shelter because it's the holiest Sunday morning. Yeah, that was a lot of anger at that moment because I took precautions and it didn't matter. But at the end of the day, what an awesome experience. What an amazing thing to have happened. And, I got all my stuff back. Yeah, there's damage to one of the rods. I can fix it. There's damage to the shelter. But should be able to. I've tried to order some patches, some tracker patches for the Tempest from Johnson Ross because they had them, but there's an issue with the order because I also ordered the Revive spray, and they can't ship that here. So I'm just waiting to see if they're actually going to ship me the patches. They said they're going to refund the order, but still send me the patches. So we'll see what happens. If I don't get the patches, I'll have to get them from somewhere else. But yeah, it was, when the next morning, I went and slept in the van the rest of the night. It was fine. Got up the next morning and I came down after sleeping in a little bit. I think I slept until 7:30. When I came down to the beach, there was Dave filming Chad Norman with a fish he had just got. So, yeah, it was a rough night, but I woke up to more camaraderie with everybody that was there and fish being caught. The weather toned down a little bit. And yeah, as we were making the rounds with the camera, I ended up getting another fish and having to sprint a good distance to get back to the rod because the people that were watching the rods couldn't hear it because they were upwind of it. So yeah, the society social was an absolute blast. A mega barbecue on the Saturday with everybody there. There was prize giveaways. Have to say Kevin's pretty damn good at cooking fried onions for burgers. Simon ran the barbecue for the burgers and the sausages, and they were great. Just overall, everybody had an amazing time. Really can't say enough of how spectacular that social was. And I would say probably half the people that were there had a fish. Some of us had multiple fish. Some blanked. Some didn't fish at all. Some were just there to hang out. And, everybody had such a great time. And, I destroyed some gear. It happens. It's one of those things. Excuse me. Let's see here. So, yeah, the weather changes definitely, Dan. They did have an impact up there, but down here, not really so much. As it gets colder and into the next couple months, I'm actually probably going to do quite well without having to change much. The only thing that the weather impacted was my ability to stay protected from the sky. Gary and Kim McCoy, thanks for the live stream. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you. You have a great Thanksgiving as well. Dan, yeah, that's wild. It was wild, but when you can go 5 or 6 hours later and just be like, yeah, it was pretty awesome. Just look up and your shelter's gone. You have no idea where it went. It's into the black. Luckily, you find it pinned, like literally pinned to a big tree. There was one item that did disappear, though. There was somebody had an inflatable boat there that wasn't there the next morning. And all we know is that it was seen airborne at one point, but never did find it. Ontario Carp and Galen, how you doing, buddy? Glad you're okay, John. Carp kit order inbound. Well, there's always a carp kit order inbound. Galen, come on, you know that. But the first place I looked for the patches for that Tempest was at Johnson Ross because I follow Carp Fix, that streaming service from Daryl Peck. I follow that. I get a discount at Johnson Ross as well. They had the patches, so I put the order in. But now there's a bit of a kerfluffle as I try to get them. So hopefully we'll get them soon and I can get that Tempest patched up. Hi from Serbia. Hello back. Good to see you. And not missing next year's, that's for sure. Well, don't miss it. It's if this was our first one and we had bugs to work out to figure out how we could make these happen more. As we were talking, the directors of the Carp Society trying to figure out exactly what we had to do, what we had to cover, all of that. We were trying to make sure we were dotting every T and crossing every I. And when it came down to actually making it happen, it seemed like it went flawlessly. Everything went off without a hitch, and everybody had a great time. So don't miss the next one. Yeah, it really, really was a good time. Galen, I will be there next year. You don't have a choice. Somebody will go to your house and kidnap you. You will be there. Dan, seems to be the opposite for us. For whatever reason, the river here shuts right down, or I just need to try harder late October into winter. Some places are like that, but keep in mind that the river that I'm fishing is fed by Lake Erie. Okay, so that's that lake that warms up faster out of the Great Lakes. And while you think technically it cools faster, um, it's still moving and rushing right down the upper Niagara. So right up until freeze up, there's tons and tons of food coming down the river. And when we get those shock freezes, sometimes you get a lot of bait fish die off. Bait fish come into the river like that, the carp go nuts. All the fish go nuts: the walleye, the muskie, the pike, bass, everything. Um, I'm really in a great position to just be able to pop over to the river and catch fish just about any day of the year. There's something I can fish for in open water on this river all year long. The lower river is a bit of a different animal. Um, Again, I can go to the lower river and fish for something every day of the year as well, as long as the drifting ice hasn't choked it right up. But yeah, this river's special. A lot of rivers will shut down, and this one just, it doesn't really shut down. It just changes what's active. Uh, so, one of the things that I do, we all use a lot of fruity baits: pineapples, bananas, um, things like that, tutti frutti. We all use a lot of fruity baits, strawberries, um, through the summer when we're fishing carp in particular. Now, as we get into the fall, I actually start to use less fruity baits and get more into the nutty type baits. So, in previous years, using cream seed or live system, always did well as I got into fall and fished through the winter into the spring. This year, I'm going to be using the N blend from DT Baits. I've already been putting that into my stick mix, and I find that as I switch to the nutty baits, I tend to have less of a taper in my catch rate. Um, so I can still catch consistently just by making that switch. This year as well, using tiger nuts as hook baits, wherein I have in the past, but not to the degree I have this year, just simply based on fishing with Toronto James last year. And tiger nuts have got me a lot of fish this year. So maybe try that, Dan. Maybe wean off some of the fruity type baits if that's what you've been using. Try some of the nutty stuff. Go nutty, and see what that does for you as you get into the colder water. Do the orders really ever end? No, they don't. As long as there's stock, there's stuff to buy. Looked into wetsuit patches? I have not. That's what we use for waders. Um, if I was patching waders, then yeah, I would definitely think of something like that. The fabric on something like a Tempest, I don't know if that would be quite the same. I'm sure it would hold, but when Tracker makes a designated patch kit for their shelters, I think I'm going to start with that and see how that goes. At the end of the day, I'll eventually get a patch, but like one of the holes is this long. It's as long as my hand. It's a big tear, and there's a bunch of small ones. So I'm going to start with what's properly made for it first and go from there. 2 months after the shad spawn is when the going gets tough here, because usually around that time the Asian clams die off, so it evens out. So yeah, weather changes definitely have a huge impact where you are, because obviously that's going to affect the spawning fish that go through there. Interesting. Why would the Asian clams die off? Dan, tigers have been a huge edge this year for me. Good idea. Keep with it. Toronto James swears by tiger nuts. He swears at tiger nuts. He has conversations with tiger nuts. He's really into his tiger nuts. But yeah, try that a little bit more. Canadian Carp Society. Have to run. Family stuff. Have a good one, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great time with the family stuff. A&M addicted anglers. River gets loaded with quarter-size shad. Wow. Yeah. Well, I guess that would make it a little bit more difficult. for here, we already have emerald shiners, but we can also get rainbow smelt and alewife, things like that really fill up the rivers. It doesn't seem to shut things off. It seems to make things a little bit crazier because we have so many more predatory species that are in the river at the same time. We get rainbow trout, lake trout, brown trout, walleye, pike, bass, muskie, very rare occasions, some salmon in the upper. But then you got carp. Carp are quite predatory in the winter from what we found. When I'm fishing the river in, say, January, February, if I can find a big area where there's some bait fish, I'm going to find carp there. If I'm fishing one of my known areas and bait fish don't show up, usually that's a blank day. They're following the schools of bait fish. So yeah, that can have a mega impact. Ah, gotcha. Okay, because the high temperatures, low oxygen, they die off. Meat will flow out and wash up on the bank. Free food. Scoop it all up, put it on little skewers, cook it over the fire. Don't do that. It's probably not a good idea. What do we got going on here? Oh man, I got chats active going on over here. Lots of stuff happening. Busy day. So yeah, we talked about the social. Social was incredible for those of you that weren't there. As long as you remember, you can go. We even had some people that didn't stay the whole weekend, but they popped in briefly. It was great to see them. It was a fantastic time. Fish were caught, fun was had, friendships were forged even more. People that we'd only ever met online. If I'm not mistaken, there was like a group of 3 or 4 guys that like lived in the same neighborhood in Toronto and had no idea. And there they all were at this campsite 5 hours away. It was really, really cool. And they're all members, obviously. Going on from that, we talked about briefly the sessions I had this past week where I had a number of good fish, including that mirror. It was absolutely a great time. Very tiring though. I work a full day, go out, do 5 hours fishing, go home, sleep for 4 hours, work a full day, do it again. That was a little bit too much on me. But when it comes down to fishing the SSF for myself and for Team Savage, we got to get the bites. We got to get the fish in the net. So I had some great fishing with very small upgrades. But luckily, Dave and Kevin, they've been getting some good upgrades. And Kevin even had another upgrade this morning for Team Savage. So the leaderboards keep changing. It's not over until Monday at midnight. So I'm going to get out tomorrow morning. I have a half day. I'm going to go put some bait out this afternoon with my boy. I'm going to fish a different swim than I have been. The swim that I've been fishing the last few weeks, it's getting me fish, but I need bigger fish. So I'm going to keep the bait going in there because I've been enjoying my time there. But I'm going to bait up another swim this afternoon so that when I arrive tomorrow morning, I can get my rigs in right away and hopefully get a quick bite before I have to worry about baiting up. So yeah, I got to get that next big fish for the SSF. And I have to say, when it comes down to doing these SSF events, the 3 times a year, spring, summer, fall, it brings out that level of competitiveness that every angler kind of enjoys, even when they're not a competitive person. So, that angler that won't normally sign up for a tournament and go fish a tournament will still do the SSF. Because if you're fishing anyways, just take a couple extra photos and send it in. You're really not doing any extra work. So for our membership that doesn't want to do a big tournament or a big event where you have to have a whole bunch of people around and you're fishing at designated spots, with the SSF, you fish within the week-long time frame. You fish wherever you want. Get your fish, take 3 specific pictures with the weight. It's all described on the website of how to do it. You get those 3 photos, you send it in, and you're on the leaderboards. We've had a number of members in previous SSF that we've had where they went out, caught mega fish, weren't signed up for the SSF, obviously couldn't enter them because they weren't signed up, their fish would have won the whole thing. Guess what? They signed up the very next one. So it's one of those things where it always goes right down to the wire. Dan's right. Always right down to the wire. Usually the very last update that comes in, there's a big shuffle. And the leaders change. Right now, Big Bad Adam Battersby is sitting up at the top of the leaderboard with 3 30-pounders already. That can be beat, believe it or not. We haven't seen much coming in from the guys in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but they're fishing, and they always enter a big weight. Carping with the Martins, they've had a number of good fish, and they've been at the top in the top 3 pretty much all week. Team Savage, we've kind of moved up from the bottom, and we're now sitting in 3rd for the team division. Solo division, all 3 of us are in I think it's 9th, 10th, and 11th for all 3 of us. So that can change. If I get 2 good fish tomorrow, I could be sitting in 3rd. You never know. It just comes down to the last second. Just need that one last bite. 2, 3, 4 doors. I'll eat the blue cats, but damn, not sure eating a filtered feeder in the 2nd longest river that doesn't flow into the Mississippi in the country. And them Canadian carp anglers. 2 the same profile. I'm on my way out here soon since the SSF. Our fish size has dropped by half. We usually catch high 20s. Now we're only catching 14s and 15s. That's weird. I forgot to change your YouTube name. Any idea why your average size would have dropped like that? Any thoughts? Like I said, the swim that I've been fishing lately, normally we've had some bigger fish. The average is just over 20 pounds, and we've had 30s out of there before. But putting a lot more effort into it, more regular baiting, I found that is what brought the size down because I've drawn in more fish. Whereas before, it was not a spot that had a lot of fish. We rarely baited it and rarely fished it. But when we did, we crushed it with bigger fish. I've been putting more effort into it to learn the swim better. And obviously, in doing that, I'm putting more bait in. I'm getting a smaller average size. So my pressure on the spot, I think, is what's caused the smaller average size for me. What do you think it is for your spot? One thing to be said, though, is that I've not been pre-baiting the swim. I'm literally rocking up for after-work sessions, baiting up as soon as I get there. Then about a half an hour later, I'm fishing once I get all my gear out of the van and ready. So today will actually be the first day I go and pre-bait that spot. When I pre-bait the one I'm fishing tomorrow, get the boy out for a drive. Actually, I have this old tripod. This was for my old underwater camera when I used to go ice fishing more regularly in the winter. And I had an underwater camera. And that camera's long dead. It's one of the old Fish TV 7-inch ones. It just died. It happens. It's old. But this tripod I had was the AquaView tripod. You sit this over the hole, you put the cable through, and it holds your camera in place. You can turn it as you need to. Well, Big Fish Angler Chad has recently got himself a new AquaView camera, and he wants to do a 3D print of a new stand to kind of customize it to suit his needs. So while we're out, I'm probably going to drop this off to him so he can take all the proper measurements and get the 3D printer rocking. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to go do some baiting up. I'm going to go put my eyes on another spot for a few minutes just to see if I see anything. And then it's going to be a matter of coming back. I got to cook up some maize. I haven't even been using maize. Probably for the last month, every session I've had, I've been basically fishing with boilies and sweet corn. Just mixing them together. I have one bucket designated with banana and pineapple boilies. and I've coated them with the DT banana DNA liquid and let that soak in for 24 hours. Then I've dusted some superfruit and end blend stick mix kind of over the top and mixed it all in. So you got this powdery coating stuck to the outside of the boilies. And I just take a few scoops of that out into a bucket, bag of sweet corn, mix that together. And that's what I've been putting out. And, you know, that's what got me fish up at the social. That's what's had me getting fish the last several weeks here in the swim that I've been fishing. It's doing the job. I have to say, since I've gone specifically to DT baits, I'm using more boilies than I used to. You know, when I was using last year, when I was using cream seed to try and give it that second chance that I didn't fairly give it before, I went through a lot of cream seed. It turns out that I was really wrong about that bait in my first impression, and putting a whole season into using that last year was well worth it. I had a lot of amazing captures with that, and switching over to DT baits, I'm finding that I'm having like the same kind of results, but not staying specific to one bait. So whereas last year I really stuck to cream seed and then a couple of the pop-ups, this year I've been using the superfruit boilies, banana boilies, pineapple boilies. I've been using all of the hook baits. I've got like 15 pots of hook baits, all different, and I'm catching on all of them. Strawberry and Scopex are the ones I'm catching the least amount of fish on. Scopex, I just don't catch on. I never have. I'll get one on it at some point, but I don't know what it is about me and Scopex. Strawberry, I've had a few fish on, but I'm getting more fast reactions out of the others, like banana, pineapple chunks, superfruit, cold water green beast. I'm really liking the cold water green beast. I'm getting good fish with that. But the strawberry, for whatever reason, while I will get fish on it, I don't get as many. So I've not been using it enough. I will be using that a little bit more through the winter time because it is a nice deep pink bait, and I like using pink in the winter. So we'll see what strawberry does in the winter time. Okay, saying we usually would feed a day earlier than go out the next morning, but we started feeding the swim for 2 weeks before the SSF and slowly diminishing. And 2 days before the SSF, we starved the swim. So I think due to all the boilies and maize that have been thrown out, about 20 kilos, has pulled in a lot more fish, but their size is more range than before. Exactly the same scenario, yeah. Just the extra bait. And, you know, I have to say we found that in other swims that we've done. For those of you who can go back in the video catalog that we have where we used to fish the secret spot, that, man, when we started fishing there, we started catching good fish right away. We were catching small fish, but we were catching a lot of big fish right away as well. And one of those particular, one of the things we noticed about that spot is that we were doing so well, catching so many fish, we were doing way more baiting. So it was not uncommon to put like 3 5-gallon pails of bait out there a week. You know, I would go do like before or after work visits to put bait out. Goldie at that time was going out midday. Same thing, putting bait out. Kevin was putting bait out there. And we just always had a cycle of bait always in there. And yeah, we caught a lot of small fish, but I think it's just through sheer volume that there was like 4 of us that were fishing at hardcore. We still managed to get the big ones out, but yeah, the more bait, the more fish, lower the size, I guess. So there's got to be something that we can work out for some of these spots that there's got to be that happy medium, that right amount of bait to keep the big fish interested and maybe some of the small fish out of the way. Just haven't figured that out yet, because next year you could do exactly the same thing and only catch big fish. That can change completely. The small fish can push off to a different part of your water, and you might not see them at all next year. Completely agree, Dan. How long have we been going here? 40 minutes. 40 minutes of me talking. It's always so boring. How have you guys been doing? I know that Dan has been out and he's had some fish. Who else? A&M. You've had some fish, but the smaller average. Who else has been catching? Who else has been doing well? We know Kevin's had a few. I hear voices. Turn that off. Sorry. You're going to have a lot of really bad feedback. Zane, say hi to everybody. So later on, we're going to go for a drive, maybe drop that tripod off to Uncle Chad, and then we'll go put some bait in my spot. What else we going to do?
I don't really remember.
Don't really remember? Okay. Well, we're going to go on this live for a little bit longer. So why don't you go hang out upstairs, and I will come and get you, and we'll go out for lunch and get some of our stuff done. Nope. Get, you turd. Yeah, every water is different. Absolutely. That ham came down here watching the live stream on his tablet. Silly kid. Dan, we're done for the week. Been an awesome week. Excellent. Excellent. 4130 cycling. I've heard of fishing just outside baited area for the big ones. There's absolutely some truth to that. And you know what? You can try to do that. For a spot like I'm fishing heavy current. So I'm putting the bait way upstream, letting it trickle down, putting it in the middle, letting it trickle down. I don't really have an outside the baited area unless I go a little further, or I try big baits, which is what I've been doing. And the big baits got me the bigger fish on the first session, not the second one. Certainly, if you're fishing a still water, try to have at least one line out off the baited area, and that does pick up bigger fish because the smaller ones all rush in and cause a lot of commotion. So there's still a lot to be said about that, but you're still going to catch, generally speaking, more of the smaller fish on average. We just got to find that happy medium to have less of those fish come in and have as much competition. There's definitely a lot to be said about fishing outside the baited area. That's another thing you could ask Anthony from the Saskatchewan Carp Kings. He's baiting these big waters in Manitoba and Saskatchewan with big beds of bait, and he definitely gets into a lot of fish, a lot of big fish. I guarantee you, a lot of times he's putting his rig off to the side of the baited patch. That's exactly what we tested this week. A lot less feed going out in about an hour. Hopefully pull us in a couple 25 plus. Excellent. Yeah, give her a whirl. Hopefully that does it. And Brandon's 29.5 at the beginning of the week was a treat. Well, don't get any more of those because Team Savage wants to move up a little bit more. LP, you. For those of you that were not at the Canadian Carp Society social last week, LP was there. Him and Alex absolutely crushed it. I believe they had 10 fish landed and a few lost. Caught more than anybody else. They had a nice protected corner in the bay, which is funny because that's the spot they ran to. But when we were planning and we were hoping we would get the peg we wanted, I ended up exactly where I wanted to fish. And I would have put my money that everybody else wanted to be there as well. But it turned out that most people went into the protected bay. And fish came out, but, nobody else had their bivvy blow away, so I had the best spot. Dan, got a jet. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving. Tight lines tomorrow, John. Good luck. Thank you, Dan. Great to see you in there. All the best to Brendan as well. So talk to you guys later. Three, four doors. Just got to work through them here. 5-foot areas where you can fish. Yeah, it's interesting, when we get into spots where we have so many fish that small ones are actually in the way. And, you know, it's kind of hard to have these discussions with people from the UK who might get 5 fish all year. And we're talking about like getting sick of getting 5 fish an hour. You know, I love catching fish. I don't care how big they are. During the SSF, I want big fish. But the rest of the year, I'll take 14 pounders all day, every day. It doesn't bother me at all because it's fun, right? It's absolutely just pure fun. Yeah, it's wild. We are spoiled with how many fish we have and how easily we can get fish feeding on a spot and numbers, like lots of fish. So yeah, during this SSF week, it's like, get out of here. I want the big ones. But as soon as that SSF is over, you know, it's over Monday at midnight. If I did an after work session, say Wednesday after work this week, excuse me, this coming week, I'm not going to give a flying to what the size is. I just want to get bites, and I know where to. You know, get a little bit of bait out, and they're going to be all over us. Yes, absolutely. 20 plus carp days are the best. They're amazing. I needed that. Gonna see the doctor. My arms hurt worse from 15-pound commons than from a day of snapper fishing in 100 feet of water. Man, small carp fight like nothing else. So the ones that I had this week, when I had those 14 pounders, they fought, but you could tell you were into fish that were mid doubles. They were strong. They held their current. They took long runs, but you can just tell that there wasn't enough pull on the rod. So you knew you were into something smaller, and you know you kind of braced yourself for a good battle. I had an 18 on Wednesday and a 19 on Thursday, and both of those fish completely lacked the head shake of the fish that were 5 pounds smaller. It was just a slow plod. So I genuinely thought when I was fighting those two high doubles that I had 30 plus fish on. They fought like that, you know, hard, slow pulls. They would go downstream on a run, but then they would just kind of, it was like walking the dog. You just gain line as they swam up current themselves. Whereas the small ones were in and out of the flow in the boulders downstream. So I had to keep steering them. So, you know, fighting a small carp, you're putting your whole body into it to keep up with them. With the big ones, you can kind of just wait until they get tired and then pull them in. You know, still a lot of effort goes into making sure you're steering them right and you're not losing them. But yeah, getting a bunch of small carp in a day that'll wear you out. 20 plus carp days are slow here. 20 by lunch is a decent day. My God. We've got a few spots like that here. The hot spot, which I haven't actually fished this year. You know, your average size is about 8 pounds there. We get the occasional 20 plus. Pretty high volume of mirrors in there. You know, you go through about 50 fish. One of them should be a mirror. I think the best session we had there between Goldie and I, we did 77 runs in a 7-hour session. And I think we landed just shy of 50 of those. I have the notebook around here somewhere. It was a couple of years ago now, but yeah, just under or just over 50 fish came to the net out of 77 runs in 7 hours. That would be the only place that I know of that you can get that kind of chaos, and it only happens in a very narrow window. You can go there anytime and catch numbers of fish, but you know, that kind of late July, early August, you know, maybe even slowly creeping towards September, that spot, man, it will beat you up. Dave Pendlebury, Carp Run Chaos. That's it. So if you go back in the channel at any point and you want to see what 77 runs in 7 hours looks like, look up the video that we did called Carp Run Chaos. We didn't really film the fishing or the fish. It was literally just a day where we thought, okay, you know what? We're going to put a GoPro underneath the pod. I'm going to set 2 rods on the pod and just see how many runs we can get. Everybody loves a good runs video. Compiling them through of all the runs through the course of the year is fun. But when you can get more runs in one session than you would over the course of a whole year on camera, that's something spectacular. And that video was an absolute riot. It was a fun day. And we had a mirror that day, funny enough. Screaming Carp runs. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving right back to you. Good to see you in there. 334 doors. Me and Ian Sorrell did 120 fish in 2 days, fishing 1 rod at a time in around 10-ish hour day. That is a killer couple of days. That's a lot of fish. That's awesome. Yeah, wow. It's just, it really is crazy what we can get into. Okay, I have one more thing on my note that I did want to bring up, and I'll bring this up now, just because we won't go too long. Like I said, I got some stuff I want to get done this afternoon. And Dave Pendlebury, you're right. When we did the Carp Run Chaos, it was 1 rod each. So yeah, it was nuts. So we've been talking probably the last 2 months, the last 2 live streams. We've talked about there was mention about Patreon and people supporting the channel, and I can't thank you guys enough for what you have sent through the super chats right here in our live stream, as well as the super thanks that I mentioned last month, where you can go to any one of the videos and hit super thanks, and it allows you to throw a donation in there. Since last month, there was a number of them that came in, and again, I can't thank you enough for that. It's just amazing that you guys would do that. But it seems to be that the super thanks, for whatever reason, and I haven't got an answer from YouTube yet, the super thanks that were put on just the random videos where, you threw a comment and hit that super thanks option, the money from those has not come in. The super chats, so when you're in the live stream right here and you go down to the bottom and you hit that little $sign, you put a super chat in here, all of those have come in through just fine. They went right into the account, ready to be put on more batteries for the cameras and SD cards and such. The ones that came in through the super thanks, haven't seen a dime of that yet. And I want to make sure you guys know that, because it's your money that you're putting in there. So while it's destined for me, and I really appreciate it, to help support the channel, if it's not coming through, I don't want you guys putting money in it. So I've actually disabled the super thanks option, because that money went somewhere. And if it's not where you intended it to go, that's not right. So the super thanks has been disabled. The super chat is still active for anybody that wants to put them in through here. Again, thank you for those of you who already have. But I did start a Patreon. So I have a lot to learn about it. I'll eventually add more to it so that it can kind of suit what people want to do. And eventually we'll throw a few exclusives in there from time to time as we restructure the channel a little bit next year. You can find a link to it in the comments section of this video. So it is up and running. There is a small, let me just bring a little tab over here. There is 1 tier option currently available until I get some time to just sit down and put more into it. But yes, if you want to support through Patreon, as some of you have mentioned, I did finally put this together, because after I saw what was happening with the super thanks on YouTube here, that bothered me. If you guys are intending for money to go a certain place and it's not going there, that's not right. So I've gone over and set up the Patreon. It's just in Patreon as the Angler Files. Again, link is in the description of this video. Currently, there's just 1 tier available to use to show support, and it's the $5 a month one. As I learn more about it and can set things up better, I'll develop this a little bit better. I want to sit down with Dave so we can work on it together. And yeah, then we'll have that option for those of you that want to support the channel, instead of going through YouTube where, some of it's come through, some of it hasn't. At least we know that it's going to go through with this. So again, thank you, all of you who have actually shown that support with donations. Like I said, I really appreciate it because it goes right back into helping me put the channel together, and it's not all out of my own pocket. With that said, I apologize that there was no video last week. Last week was a video week, and I was at the Carp Society Social. I don't actually have one ready. I was looking through my files, and I don't have a complete video ready. I have like 4 videos that are like partially filmed, but I need to get out and film the last part of it. And so until I can get out and do that, I don't have a video ready. So for the next video week session that should come up, I'm going to talk to Dave. Dave's mentioned that he's got one that he can work on to get put out there. I'm going to try and take the cameras with me tomorrow, film the session while I'm out. I've also been really hard at work on CCS TV episode 4. So for you members of the Canadian Carp Society, or for those of you who have seen the channel trailer or the CCS TV trailer on the Canadian Carp Society YouTube channel, the CCS TV has really gone really well. Oh, let's see here. 334 Outdoors, about to head get dressed for pics. Post a link to the Patreon. Let me just see if I can throw it right in here too, because I've got it in the comment section. Let me just paste that in there. There, that way you guys can see it right there. Hopefully I did that right. Thank you again for that. And yeah, shouldn't you be getting ready to get married? We're not cutting into that time, are we? But yeah, as I was mentioning, CCS TV, we've done, the plan is to do 4 episodes a year. We've done 3 already. The 4th episode I'm currently trying to put together. We have a lot of content to put in this one. Still need to make sure that I have the in-session piece in place. And for those of you who were not at the Canadian Carp Society Social, Dave and I had cameras rolling. There was a few updates that we needed that we didn't get because of it was crazy. We didn't get, the craziness of my bivvy blowing away and getting destroyed. I don't recall sitting down with anybody to go over any rigs or anything, but just to be there and capture the essence of what was going on and see a bunch of the fish as they came out. We do have some footage from the social, and it's probably going to take me a whole week just to put that together, let alone the rest of CCS TV. So episode 4, the last one for this season of CCS TV, is going to be late for members because I have a lot of footage to go through and put together. We've got great stuff from Galen, as always, at ONT Carpin. We've got stuff from Will Machette. I believe we've got stuff from Big Wayne from the Canadian Carp Society. I've got, let me just move this screen over here. I've got stuff from a bunch of people that we don't normally get stuff from. And I haven't even been able to look at it all. I got a folder on my desktop. I got folders in other folders, and I've just got so much to look at. It's going to be a great episode to finish off this season of CCS TV. So again, if you're members, you'll see it when it comes out. If you're not members, just keep watching the Canadian Carp Society YouTube channel. I'm working to see if we can make some of it available to the public after season 2 starts in January. We were hoping the camera made it at the social. Yes, it absolutely did. 334 doors. You can always do the good old 3 days early post to Patreon. Yes, absolutely. And that's something that I'll be looking to do. The downside is that sometimes I get the video finished, edited, and uploaded like 20 minutes before it's scheduled time to go live. So I will have to be more diligent at making sure I get things ready sooner. But yeah, that is the plan, stuff like that, to make certain availability through Patreon for those that are supporting that way. Just as that, added bonus and sign of respect for what you guys are doing. So we're just approaching that 1 hour mark. I think I've kind of covered, for the most part, what's been going on. A lot of fish. I have a spreadsheet for DT baits that our whole team has been putting things into, and I am so far behind. I have over 80 fish since June 2nd when I last updated that spreadsheet, and I'm sure they're just pulling their hair out waiting for me to get those numbers in, because obviously with these numbers not in the spreadsheet, it doesn't show properly for everything else. I have over 80 fish I've got to put in there that I've caught since June 6th, and I'm going back out tomorrow. So hopefully when this number hits 100, I can update that to the spreadsheet, and then I can get a proper look at how many I've actually caught this year, because it's been a killer year for big fish, for numbers of fish. I've had 2 mirrors this year. I've had an amazing season, and it's just wonderful to be able to share so much of what the season has been like with the rest of you. Is that just a record of what fish was caught on what bait? Yeah, for the most part, what fish caught on what bait, sometimes where, usually like what sizes, what if there's a certain bait that's doing a higher average size than others, that sort of thing. LP, can I get a, oh yeah. There's Dave. Ben Battersby, I'm a little late, oopsie. Man, I was just about to wrap this up. You're really late. But it was great to see you last week at the social. If you show up the next one, I'll throw Twinkies at you again. So yeah, you know what? Great time, guys. I have to say, I really appreciate all of you being in here in the chat. Not only do I love that you guys are interacting with me, I love that I get to see you guys interacting with one another as well, quite often. I got to get bait in my spots. I got some stuff to do. So I'm actually going to cut this one a little bit shorter than normal. We're right around that normal time. Sorry, Ben. I apologize that you're going to miss out on so much. Normally the live streams, yeah, I would probably pop on at 1 o'clock, but I want to get some stuff done. I want to get my gear ready, and I want to be able to get some upgrades for the SSF tomorrow. Team Savage needs to ravage. It's got to happen. If you're not going Savage, you're just not going at all. So, you know what? Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for interacting in the chat. For those of you that I know and that I see in here all the time, and for those of you that I've seen for the first time or only once or twice, you know, reaching all the way out. We've got people all the way out in Serbia that we're tuning in here, and that's just absolutely fantastic. Hashtag meow. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, great to see you all here. Thank you all for the support that you've been throwing in. I really appreciate it. Dave and I are going to be working hard to get back on track and get some videos ready, and we are working on the kind of the restructuring of how we're going to do some videos and lives and stuff like that for next year. So just keep watching the channel. We're going to keep making stuff. We're going to keep putting it out there, and hopefully it will all involve lots of fish. So until November, thank you. I'm just going to get a big flag right here that says thank you, lights up. Thank you all, and we will see you again soon. Take care, everybody. And happy Thanksgiving, and best of luck on your wedding, 334 Outdoors. Have a great time.